Tuesday, December 15, 2020, to order. Topic on today's agenda is the update on the health services plan, the center update. Dr. Pace, or who are we turning this over to?
I believe I'll turn it over to Sarah.
Sarah?
Yeah, I'm turning it over to the team.
Okay.
So we have our partners here from Proventure and Rosencare and Mitigate Partners here with us today. I think you guys have all met everybody by now.
I have, actually, Mr. Thacker, Ms. Castillo, good to see you again. Gentlemen, glad to be here. Look forward to answering your questions. I'm Barry Murphy with Mitigate Partners.
Actually, Barry, do you want me to turn it over to you guys to do introductions?
Yeah, so I've met the new board members when you toured the health center with Kenneth. Part of our advisory team is Mitigate Partners, and Barry Murphy is part of that team. And so Barry, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit?
Delighted to be here. I've been doing it 47 years. So happy to have partnered with Proventure. I think it was very cogent of the board to and Dr. Pace and Ms. Graber to recognize that having a cohesive team across the clinic and the non-clinic so that everything was integrated into one common plan really is serving your membership quite well.
Health center.
Health center.
Thank you. I'm Lauren Haddock's director. I've met all of you before, and my first board workshop as a director with you, so thank you. So this board workshop's a little bit different because we have a senior member like Mr. Thacker. We have Ms. Castillo, who's kind of been around for a bit of time, and then we have new board members. So I thought what we would do today is kind of do a kind of where we've been as far as historical, where we've been the past year, and then where we're going forward with our plans, to kind of gone through historical, where we have been the past year, and then going forward, and how we are just ordinary people helping ordinary people. So how we've kind of taken that approach with you all, and what we've really accomplished is really leaps and bounds this past year. So kind of going over that. When we first, to present the school district, it's kind of a hurricane situation, if you want to call it that perfect storm, what you all had going on for you. So historically, the school district had healthcare, your medical and pharmacy, your premiums kept on going up and up for years after year. The benefits were kept on getting diluted year after year because your premiums are going up and up. The employee independent medical conditions were worsening year after year because your premiums were going up and the benefits were getting diluted. So therefore, the medical conditions were getting worsening and worsening because people were not taking care of themselves. They were putting off taking care of themselves with that. You had a situation with the health center that you had made arrangements to have an employee health center, and that's a great thing. But unfortunately, it was operating as an urgent care center. You had thought you had put in a contract for a population health or a situation to have population management done in, but that wasn't the case. They were treating it as an urgent care center, so it was not controlling your expenses. It was really a situation where employees could go, get treated for a Band-Aid situation, and then go run and be gone on their run on their way. But also, it was also feeding specialists to a certain hospital system and feeding into that situation, which we're finding out now. So that's a little bit different what was going on there. And also, as far as solutions but were being presented to you were rather limited. The incumbent partners were presenting only solutions were narrow networks and only HSA plans. So that was really the only thing that was option for you as far as what the alternatives were. And the health fund or the Osceola Schools fund had to be supplemented with additional monies because there was overspending going on each year. So here you have historically the past 3 years, so from 2015-16 plan year, 16-17, 18-19, and then the current year. And you'll always hear, we always use the word buckets over the past years. My glasses are fogging, sorry. We have little buckets and then we have the big bucket. The small bucket is the fixed cost. So the administration costs and including the reinsurance or the stop loss insurance for running our program. It's a very small cost. You'll see there it's 3.83% of our overall plan. And then we have the SDOC Health Center operations, and that's a little bit, almost 6% of our costs. Then the big bucket is our claims cost, right? And that's almost 90% of our cost. So we really want to focus on where are we spending the majority of our costs is really the claims. So we want to be laser focused on where are we spending our money to make the money go out of the big bucket, right? So we have our last year. You can see the money going up from 16 and 17 and 18, how much the money was going up from 53 million to 61 million to 63 million. And each one of those years, the school had to supplement the trust fund with additional monies each of one of those years. For last year, for the 19-20 plan year, you'll see here again the fixed cost, the health center costs, etc. But the plan ended up running at 58 million. And the plan ran about $5.2 million less than the previous year. So the 1 year that we partnered together, we had a savings on the plan or a reduction in $5.2 million. So how and where did we get here? How did we partner together? We came together, we were asked to operate the health center. Came to here, actually they asked us to look at the health center years ago when you guys were first talking about opening a health center and you guys toured the Rosen Medical Center. We have our own on-site medical center for Rosen employees that's world renowned, and for our proactive care, our preventive care for our associates. And people would come and tour our medical center all the time, different corporations, different senators and different political people from different political parties would come and look at it. And we always would show them and saying, great, we'll show you how to do it, but then you can go on your own and you can do it on your own. And you guys did that too, but you guys went on your own and you hired a different organization for that. And then you guys came back and said, it's not working, will you please run our health center for us? And at that time, we kind of said, we felt you guys really needed us, so we agreed to partner with you. Kenneth and I really kind of felt bad, and we said that we could do it. So on October 1st, 2019, you'll see in the picture was the ribbon cutting ceremony there with Mr. Rosen is there, Mr. Thacker is there, and we had the ribbon cutting ceremony there.
I think the health center is a perfect example of Harris Rosen's concern and care for healthcare on the one side and education on the other. Gave their team the opportunity to combine those two into a support structure for your whole district.
And then on the other side, from the advisor side, we partner with Mitigate Partners to become the benefit consultants in June of 2019. And our instructions from the board at that time were, we need to think outside the box, be creative. Our members deserve the best care. We don't want to strip down the plans. We want to give them the best care possible, but we can't continue down the same path that we've been going down as we've been going down right now. We need something innovative. We need something different. So bring something to the table to us that's different. And just to give you a little bit of idea of what ProVensure Mitigate Partners and how we join together is we're both partners in a group of individuals called Health Rosetta. And I'm not sure if, I know Sarah had sent you a video from Dave Chase, who did a TED Talk on healthcare today and how it's killing the American dream, and how he did a pilot on Rosen at that time, and what different companies like Rosen are doing about it. And so I just want to give you a little bit of background of Dave Chase is our mentor and our founder, but how there are these different advisors out there of that like-mindedness who are doing creative and innovative things like that. So in the little cartoon here kind of says, you can see the problem is really this middle person, so what we do is really just cut out the middle person. We go direct. And so we build plans for you that are really just going direct to providers and doing some direct contracting with you. So, and we'll talk about that later. And one of the first things that we did is that we got a program in here, and then Mr. Thacker is going to talk a lot about Dare Walk, because we talked about Dare Walk for so long and getting Dare Walk put in place. And Dare Walk is really an analytics system for us, and getting the data out of the system, and the data will tell us everything. And analyzing that data, and we can really slice it and dice it any which way that we want to get it to. And then we can create certain cohorts and track data and let it tell us certain stories. And so what it told us is that what your employee count is, your member size, what your gender size is, your average family size, your average age size, and then what we look at are gaps in care. Where are we spending excessively? Where are we having low utilization, high utilization? Any disease classes that we have? Sorry, the wrong slide there. And we can look at data down to the granular level. So in here we go through, Milliman is a benchmark program where we can do it's a advanced risk adjusters, and they present benchmarking data for us. And what they do is compare your data to other data in the same risk group for us. And so what we say is, comparing your group to other groups out there, how is your risk group is? So your average employee, comparing it to the other groups of your size or to other benchmark groups in the population, is 17% higher risk score than the other individuals. Your spouse populations are 44% higher risk. Your child risks are a lot less, but all members combined are 2% higher. So again, when we see that the 44% of your spouses are much higher, that's a very big concern for us. So I know we have concerns about premiums and how much we're paying for coverage for our spouses and for our families. These are the things that we have to go into and take that into effect.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Can you help me understand what factors are considered to create the high risk? Like, what are the factors that you're looking at?
So they're gonna be taking into, so for the whole risk score, so they take a group of our same age, gender, sex factor.
Yeah.
And what the average spend risk profile, and then our group, and how does the average age, gender, sex spend profile compare to that? And we're spending our profile, how does it compare to that? So ours is 17% higher.
So this is based on spending, how much we're
Spending and also projecting forward. So our health conditions that we have.
Okay.
The spending is generated from the underlying disease factors, hypertension, average hypertension, hyperlipidemia.
The actions.
We have a fair amount of diabetes in the group, and all of those generate costs. And it's the aggregation of those costs that this benchmark is intended to compare. And we can use the Milliman data and say, compared to other school districts, compared to Central Florida, compared to Florida, compared to the Southeast. And we use these data analytics, and when we're trying to identify the folks that need extra support and more care in managing their disease states, so we can bend those costs down.
Okay, so the cost really is based on health conditions that are considered,
That's
that we
correct.
end up spending more on.
That's correct.
Correct.
Got it.
It's behavior,
Specific.
cost, yes,
So behavior and health conditions.
correct.
And unit costs, which is where we've spent a lot of our effort in direct contracting. If someone's gonna have a procedure done, we're doing what we can to minimize the cost impact of that procedure. But that's separate from trying to impact the actual underlying folks that are needing procedures and finding ways to make them healthier.
Mary, you mentioned Milliman's allows us to compare us to other districts in the state. So how do we compare?
Carolyn, I don't think we've done that cohort, have we?
This is the whole entire Milliman database.
That's, yeah,
Yeah.
we would need to dice that more finely for you. I think Lauren came up with, is this for distribution or is this just for us?
This is for the premiums.
Yeah, this doesn't have anything to do with the risk scores, but it does show you a very good comparison of where your board contributions are compared to other school districts, what the employee costs are for single and family. It's really good data. Lauren did a good job on that.
And it looks like you're right about in the middle.
Thanks.
I have a question, but I'll reserve it for the end.
Okay.
You have a question?
I'll wait to the end. I'll wait to the end of the presentation.
Okay, sure. So historically, you'll see here, going back to 2014 plan year up to 2018, what the gross per member per month costs were for the school district. Starting at $455 per month, per member per month, going up all through 678. And then if you just annualize it times 12, you'll get what the annualized amount is there and how much it was last year. And then again, if we bring that current to last year's plan year, how we did last year. How we did last year. Again, so that's where again, the little bit of drop in the rates there.
So is that the total cost of all the buckets together?
So that's per member, correct, so per belly button on the plan. So we have employees and then we have members, correct. So what causes those high risk scores, right? So we wanna say is really chronic conditions. Chronic conditions are really the driving factor of what makes a health plan, what drives the cost for a health plan. And here you can see things like asthma, coronary artery disease, chronic kidney disease, cancers, congestive heart failure, diabetes, hyperlipidemia, hypertension, and how many members we have with those conditions, how many members per thousand we have, and what the benchmark is per thousand. And the ones that are in red are the ones that we are in excess of the benchmark. So you can see the difference in the ones where we're kind of in jeopardy on.
I think this speaks directly to your question, Ms. Castillo.
Yes, thank you. This
Yep.
is exactly what I was looking for.
And the next slide shows how do these conditions, how much these chronic conditions cost the plan each year. We talk about emergency room visits and number of hospitalizations per year. So here again, we're talking about, you're gonna see them as far as excessive, and then up in the upper left-hand corner, again, I run to remind you what the annual PMPM was for the PMPM for a group overall was 8,136. So but for each of these conditions, how does that compare to the overall group? So you can see, so comparing to the overall group, some person with diabetes is 16,000, so it's double. So a person with diabetes is double than the average for the whole group. And again, so all of those conditions, so Kenneth will start talking with you about
what we're doing to help those chronic conditions. Because every time we help those chronic conditions get lower, we're helping the group get the average group get moved down.
Mr. Melendez, did you wanna ask any questions before I jump in?
Okay, I just didn't wanna, okay, and actually go back to that slide, cause it's similar to that, because we can have it by, cause the way I think about it, because I love the tour, by the way, I just wanna put that out there. And when I think of, I don't really think of somebody as a condition, like for instance, diabetes. Diabetes could be that they go to their primary care physician and they receive treatment, they don't necessarily have to go to a hospital. Only if they get like a diabetic coma or something, I don't know all the medical terms, it's been a while, but the condition has to be something severe that they go to a hospital. And what I wanted to try to track was, because when we go to a primary care physician outside of the health center, we have to pay that person, that provider, for rendering that service. I would like to see if we could get them to come in, you know what I mean? Because then we don't pay extra, because my assumption is it's a fixed cost for the people who are currently working at the health center. We're not paying a claim to ourselves. That's one of the reasons for the health center. So I don't know if we could see something like that that shows not just conditions, but the use of outside providers that are in competition what we provide. For instance, we have an x-ray machine. Well, how many people went out to do x-rays outside? If we were able to convert those employees to take x-rays in-house, then we can save money on those claims. Does that make sense? That's like the easier,
Absolutely.
that's like the low-hanging fruit, you know what I mean? 'Cause
Well,
we can't compete with the hospital because we're not gonna have our surgery center, but we do have an x-ray machine, we do have an EKG. We have other services that we render in-house, and that's a comparison that I would like to see, is how much are we paying outside providers to do that we could do at the center?
and we have to show improvement in that dynamic. There's three things that go into the cost of these things. Number one is, can we find a way to make the people healthier so they have lower utilization? Number two is, where do they go when they seek care? And number three, how do we manage or control or impact the cost at the point of service? And that's the three things. Our overall theme is active management, as opposed to what most everyone else has been doing the last 25 years, passively letting someone else manage the health plan. So the data is critical, where we can identify people and apply resources so that we can impact those three things. And the health center is at the core of it.
So Mr. Melendez, you're exactly right. You know, we're striving to bring more of the population into the health center. And you're gonna see in our presentation here that we're touching about 42.9% of that population, but we're putting in strategies to encourage patients to come to the health center, such as the chiropractor, the ophthalmologist. Those are the kind of things that are gonna drive people to say, you know what, I do have diabetes and I can't afford to go to the ophthalmologist outside of the health center. I'm gonna go to the health center, see the ophthalmologist there, and then hopefully that's gonna entice that individual to continue care with us. So you're gonna see in our presentation here, I'm gonna talk a lot about some of those conditions that Carolyn just presented, and remember and show those ER utilization, and I'm gonna show you, okay, some of the things that we've done to try and mitigate those issues. So here's just some slides of our providers, nurse practitioners, DOs, MDs, physical therapists. I think, Barry, you're gonna talk a little bit about Natasha with ElectRx, so I won't go into that. And then Dr. Sarmento will be starting, I think, in February. Here we brought in a chiropractor, and I wanna talk a little bit about the chiropractic, and I think I got to talk a little bit with each one of you. It's not that gross motor where you lay down and they're just cracking every little piece of your body. They're focused on the upper cervical health. It's more specialized. And we've had anecdotals where patients are telling us, I go in one time, I'm feeling better from my pain. And we're actually having patients who are coming to us organically from their peers saying, go see Dr. Hughes. So Sarah, Lauren, and I are gonna be working because we started him in November. And in November, our goal was to just start him off part-time until we build up the practice, build up the utilization, so that we don't spend unnecessarily with a limited population using him. Within 1 month, I think it was about 30 days, we added an additional day because we were starting to fill up on those other days. Well, now we're gonna be asking to move him full-time, just because of that population is now spreading the word where one tells four and now they're coming in to see us. Well, if he's taking care of the back pains, where are they not gonna go? The emergency room. Carolyn showed some of those numbers in your low back pains were going where? The ER or urgent care. Number one, that costs them money. Number two, do we really wanna go to those systems? Because they have a purpose, acute care. But if we can take care of it at the health center with Dr. Hughes, and then that patient will realize, wow, look at all these other services. Well, I mean, we're screaming it from the rooftops about everything that we're doing. But still we hear, oh, I didn't know about that. But now we can reach out to those individuals through the Deer Walk to say, guess what? You're diabetic, you should be getting your eyes checked. And I'm gonna talk a little bit about that because that's really important to go back to what you were talking about, Mr. Melendez.
Now, is the health center considered part of the program? Like, so for instance, if someone gets online, I forgot that MAP program was called, and someone says, I'm looking for a provider of this, and we show tier 1 providers, is the health center considered one of those that are populated too? So they can look at it and go, okay, you know, you don't just see other providers, they see the health center as a potential option for that.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Yeah,
does,
so
and that was a question, I'm like, does it or does it not show up?
Yeah, so our ophthalmologists, we had them all vetted through MAP and they are MAP providers.
Yeah, that's
So I think that's what your question is.
Yeah.
Yes, and then we're gonna be bringing in pulmonology, I think that's in my slides too, they're MAP credentialed. And then podiatry, we're gonna be doing that, they're MAP credentialed, so the answer is yes.
I think Mr. Melendez's question was, if someone calls MAP, are they going to try to get them to the health center?
Yes.
Yes.
And the answer is yes, they
And
are.
not steer them 100%, but let them know
No.
that it's an option.
That's
You know what I
right.
mean, I don't want
Yes.
people to feel like they're getting into a corner, but.
And it's the free option, which MAP would advise these people, it's free over here, you got a copay over here.
And it's not
So we're
just,
doing what we can to steer more.
it's not just MAP Aether, if you call Aether's customer service, they also direct them to the health center.
A quick question on your physical therapist. On your physical therapist, let's say someone had, like I had rotator cuff surgery. Are they have, and I had to go to a secondary, you know, for therapy. Is that how this is set up? So if they have like, you know, knee surgery or shoulder surgeries, that we can send them to this location for the,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah,
I have
so
your
if they
IMC,
have surgeries, yes, we can continue the care instead of them going to an outside provider for
Right.
those therapies. And knee surgery, great option here. We want them to see our therapists for 2 weeks prior to surgery. And then after surgery, have that done. But then also if they have injuries, we're referring them to our physical therapists, you know, like back pain, those type of things. So the answer is yes on both sides.
The physical therapists that we have at your medical center are called IMC Physical Therapists. And it's a whole different type of physical therapy that they do. And it's, I don't know if you wanna talk about the IMC method or.
Well, it's a very specific way of being trained in the McKinsey method of therapy that has proven outcomes. And our therapists are trained on that. Our providers are also trained on the triaging of for physical therapy, because again, we are very hardcore, let's do the therapy first, because why? If we send them to a surgeon, they're probably gonna have surgery. You know, so we wanna try and prevent that. Let's do everything we can up front, therapy, anti-inflammatories, whatever we need to do to make sure, you know what, cutting is the last resort. So here, we've had ownership of the health center for about a year. There's some trending up there. One area that we've gotta all work on, and we talk about it, is the no-shows. We are sending out letters, we are charging those individuals, but it's just something that I wanna continue to push, and for you guys to also push, that it's not acceptable. It's absolutely not acceptable. If you've scheduled an appointment, go on our portal to cancel, call us to cancel. If you're not thinking about your providers, think about your coworkers who are out there who could have used that spot. It's just not acceptable. And if I get in trouble for saying that, fine. So in October or September, you can see some of our numbers here. Again, from the chiropractic visits, you're gonna see us including ophthalmology, and then again in the future, we're gonna be talking about some of the other services that we wanna bring in because what are we talking about? The diabetics and the hypertensives. Because you saw where your spend was on those chronic care conditions, and that's what we were preaching from the very beginning. We've talked about 75 to 85% of your spend is gonna be spent on those chronic care conditions. Well, let's make sure that they have access to the meds, access to the specialists, access to the therapies so that they can control that chronic care condition instead of flooding the emergency rooms. They have enough to deal with. You see here, the population is now 8450 as of open enrollment, so we're touching about 42.9% of that population. And then same for the, oh, that's coming up next. Here it breaks it down again for the employees and the spouses. Let's see. One of the fun things, I mean, we've accomplished a lot in a year, at least in my eyes. One of the things that we talked about quite a bit was this Point Siena. And I really didn't know much about Point Siena until I came over here. And that's where we learned that there was a significant portion of the population that's living out there. So we partnered with a group, and we actually opened a little facility out in Point Siena to provide services for that population out there. We are out there 2 days a week. We're now doing vaccines over there, some medication therapies out there. But again, everybody for therapy and ophthalmology and those type of things will come back to the main health center because that's where we have all the equipment. We talk about, Carolyn, the little bucket. We want to continue to spend more money at the health center because we've negotiated rates for the providers that are in the health center, but also we're providing accessibility to your members. Because if you come to the health center for chiropractic medicine, it doesn't cost your associate any money. They can come without paying the deductible and the co-insurance. So it increases what? Compliance. So if we can have them seeing their provider, they don't go to the emergency room. Same with ophthalmology. We're increasing the compliance of the population who absolutely needs it. One of the things that we did also in that same year, we recognized 75%, I think it is, of your population are female. And we are strong believers in wellness and prevention. So we worked with Women's Center for Radiology, and we brought them over to the health center to provide mammograms at the health center. Lauren and Wendy have taken it a step further. We have taken this bus, and now they're actually going to all of your schools. One of the things I gotta talk about is that when we bring them out to the schools, we have to make sure that we've solidified the number of patients that are gonna be using it. If they don't use it, they're going to lose it, and we'll take it to another school. There's no excuse. We're bringing it to you. So I know Lauren and Wendy are working hard at that because we partnered with this group that is very expensive for them to bring it on site, calibrate it, set it, those type of things. So we got to make sure we take care of our partners too. But remember, we've negotiated these rates with our partner to save you guys not only money for the district and the patient, but also making sure that we as the clinicians get what we need, which is the screening mammograms. Maybe in the future we might do some more advanced mammograms.
Kenneth, I assume these people are signing up and then they're still not showing even when it's on
Yes.
site?
Yes, sir. And you guys know how I feel about it.
I'm with you.
So, yes, sir.
What would you do about that if you had the authority to deal with it? But you want to deal with it?
It'll be nice. We'll just continue with the dollars associated to charging them that no-show visit.
Right.
But I think I would like for everybody to hear, be respectful and cancel that appointment, especially to our vendors who we partnered with to bring them in to serve your associates, your members. Let's work together. We want to make sure that they're happy, we're getting the screening mammogram, because when we find something early, we can prevent, maybe save that individual's life. And that's the reality.
May I ask, just since we are on that, I had a note to ask later, but I'll ask now. With regards to no-shows, I know this has been a continuing conversation that we've had since we've opened the center, and I know you're passionate about it. Do you follow up to ask why? I'm trying to see if there's any trends as to why people are canceling, whether it's mammogram or the on-site medical appointments.
So it's more on the physical therapy is where we see a lot of the no-shows.
Yeah,
So we can start asking the whys.
Yeah.
To me, unless it's an emergency or something like that, it's really no excuse to just call and cancel.
right. I guess where I'm going is we obviously have an issue that hasn't been solved. And I think in order to solve it, we need to figure out what is the mitigating factor. Like, are they not showing? I would say for mammograms, not that I know that this is an issue, but perhaps people are a little afraid of having a mammogram in a bus while they're at school. That might be an issue. How do we address that so that we can mitigate the no-shows? That's the reason I'm asking. So, not sure if you have data on that. But I guess that might be a good place to start. Just kind of trying to figure out why are you canceling?
Yeah, why are you not, I mean, canceling I'm okay with, if they cancel,
Well, I mean, I apologize, no show.
it's just not showing up.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, 8 point, I think we're at like almost 9%,
Mhm.
and it's like physical therapy is pretty big. So yeah, we can start asking those questions, but again, you know, if you're afraid, then just let us know.
Yeah, but they may not feel, and we can have this conversation offline. I don't wanna
Yeah,
derail,
no
this is
worries.
especially for you guys, so I don't wanna derail the conversation, but we really do need to figure out what the issue is so that we can address that issue, not just, I'm not showing up, okay, but why? That's the issue we need to solve.
Yeah.
But they-
The challenge is that we don't have it with other groups, that's
Yeah,
the,
you know how
that's
many
the
times
challenge.
I've canceled appointments because I'm like, yo, I don't know if I wanna have news about X, Y, or Z today.
But you
Yeah.
cancel.
But you
yeah,
cancel.
Sure.
But you
I
show the
know.
courtesy to cancel as
course.
opposed to just blowing it off.
No, of course, just something
I
to,
can appreciate where
think
she's coming though,
about.
because once we get, we can understand the reason why, if they even respond to the survey.
Correct. And what we're saying though is that when at our medical center and when I do on-sites for other groups with the mammogram bus, we don't have that issue. So
That's
it's something unique to this population and we don't know, we don't understand why.
Well, we need to find out.
Yeah.
Statement, please? Can you repeat what you just said is unique to what population?
So at the Rosen Medical Center, we don't have that no-show issue.
Okay.
And when
We have a no-show, but not to that.
not to that extent.
Right, yeah, okay.
And when I do mammogram events for other groups that I work with, I don't have that no-show issue. So we're not sure about why this is happening with this specific population.
I've got a question. 99.99% of people carry these with them and they
Yes.
are on them all the time.
Yes.
My dentist, I get the biggest kick out of her because she is relentless and I
do
get a text message.
We do it.
Okay, you do send a text
Yes.
message forcing a response and
Yes.
and they still don't, wow.
In all fairness, there's a lot going on in the classroom.
Yeah,
And some of this has to do with, gosh, I'm supposed to be there, but Johnny needs, something. But not to the extent that would drive this type of number.
I feel like if that's the issue, I'm working, dude, like I can't make it, okay, let us know.
Right.
We can mitigate that, maybe you need a substitute or something, in
Right.
order to make sure that you make it, but don't wanna derail the conversation.
No,
Just a
absolutely.
thought.
I just wanna make sure everybody
Can I-
understands, yes.
That's not a half bad idea to have a designated person
Floater.
when the mammogram bus is there that literally goes around to free people up.
Mammograms isn't the issue. It's global. It's medical.
No, I understand.
Yeah, whatever the issue is, yeah.
But one of the things I wanna make sure is I do like some no-shows because then that gives us a time to breathe and do
Sure,
other
sure.
things that we need to do administratively, look at charts, x-rays, those types of things. So at a certain percentage is acceptable.
Mhm.
The national average is 20 to 50%. That's because, those providers are looking at generating revenue. They already know that, hey, maybe 20 to 50% are going to no-show. I'm gonna double and triple book.
Mhm.
What happens if all three of them show up at 8 o'clock? Now you got 3 people at 8 o'clock now upset saying, oh, I have an 8 o'clock with Dr. Joe. I have an 8 o'clock with Dr. Joe. And they get upset. That's not the way that we have set it up. Because we can fix this as we get those letters out to those individuals, figure out why from a department level, why are they no-showing that physical therapy or whatever it might be, and find out the root cause. Maybe we can fix it that way.
Correct.
Okay, so here we were talking about diabetes because, Mr. Melendez, you were talking specifically about, some of the issues related to diabetes. Diabetic retinopathy, the eyes, foot check, that's where we're gonna have podiatrists come in, the kidneys. And the reason why I wanna show this is because I'm gonna show you some other data that's specific to the diabetics that we were able to increase our rate of improvement. So I wanted you guys to have that in the back of your minds. So when we came on board, we recognized some of the data. We were a little concerned with patients not getting to do the guideline type of things that we need to do for our diabetics, such as diabetics are supposed to have their eyes checked because the diabetes, especially if it's uncontrolled, can damage the eyes. That's diabetic retinopathy. So we asked the district, let us bring in Magruder. And we brought Magruder in for the very first time in November. And that day, I think it was Mr. Melendez, I think you were there that day when
Yes,
she
that's
actually
what you
said, she was there that morning, she saw 8 patients that morning, and 5 of her patients have serious eye issues, where some of them are gonna have to have injections in their eyes. And we found it because we were recognizing that need for the ophthalmologist for your 600 plus diabetics. It proved this. I was sad that we found it, but happy we found it because maybe we could save their vision. I mean, come on, glaucoma and diabetic retinopathy. Remember that slide that I showed you? These are the things that we can find and we can prevent. We found it. So the hope is that we started off with once a month, but I think that we're going to increase it. We're going to have that ophthalmologist. Dr. Amin did a spectacular job, and I already talked to somebody out in the waiting area that she's excited to go see our ophthalmologist in our health center. So what that does for the other percentage of the population who are not coming to the health center, they hear about it. Oh, I don't want to go pay $60 to go see the ophthalmologist. I'll come over to the health center. Now you become our patient. So that's some of the strategy.
One of the major themes we've approached the management of your healthcare is everywhere possible to eliminate or minimize the barriers to care. Geographic barriers, which is why Poinciana is gonna grow. Economic barriers to care. People who say, I can't afford to go see an ophthalmologist with that copay. Eliminating barriers to care creates greater compliance with disease state management. And that will ultimately pay off in lower claims costs.
So it's important to know that Magruder Eye Institute and the ophthalmologist that's coming on site is not your regular eye doctor that maybe you and I go see the big E. Do you need eyeglasses? This is somebody that's looking at their retina and to see if they have if is their retina okay? Do they have bleeding behind their eye? So it's not for everybody. This is really for somebody that has hypertension or has diabetes. So it's really gonna be specific people that would be able to go. She does not prescribe glasses and things like that to people.
So the difference is one's an optometrist that we can go to Sam's and get glasses. The other is an ophthalmologist, which is an MD. Dr. Amin also is a retina specialist. So we've taken it a step further and she did a spectacular job. So pray for those 5 people, please. So we're going to, she's coming back and I think we have 26 patients already on the schedule for that when she comes back. This is a program that we're going to be launching for our diabetics because one of the things you'll see in one of the reports, there are many diabetics that are just not checking their blood sugar. And that's the foundation. The patient needs to know, okay, where am I at with my blood sugar? What do I need to do to lower my blood sugar? And just have that basic understanding. But this is, so it accomplishes a couple of things. Number one, it saves the patient money. So they're going to be able to afford their test strips and Lancets. Number two, the district saves money from the negotiations that we achieved for the test strips and Lancets. Number three, the clinicians will now have the information that they need to be able to treat our patients more appropriately. So I'm really excited about this. We got a population of 25, I think, diabetics that are going to be going through it and testing it, and we're going to be launching it.
And so with the monitor, the device, the provider can actually communicate with the member. So if the provider notices that there's a spike in a sugar, they can actually send a message to the member through the device and says, I noticed your sugar peaked, can you please give me a call, and vice versa. So it's a really neat.
So that just to go on a little bit more information. Many times we have diabetics who come in to see the providers. And when I was taking care of diabetics, I'd ask them for their little monitor so that I can see how we've been trending for the week, for the month. 99% of the time they never bring it. this system's gonna communicate through a Bluetooth and send that information to us. And from there, we can see trends, we can say, oh wait, you are taking your medicine, but you know what, let's make some adjustments. So it's much more advanced, but again, it's a win-win-win for the patient, the district, and for the clinicians. On the previous slides, Dr. Melendez, Mr. Melendez, you also saw diabetic neuropathy. That's one of the problems with diabetics is they start losing feeling. And so you hear of diabetics who step on a nail and they don't even know that they stepped on it. And so this is one of the things that we do at the health center to make sure that we are looking for that. But eventually what we'd like to bring in once we've gotten you stabilized on who's coming in what days from the pulmonologist, from the ophthalmologist, from the chiropractor, we're gonna bring in a podiatrist to make sure that there's nothing that we're missing for a diabetic population. Remember on Carolyn's slide, you saw asthmatics and COPDs patients. Well, we have a relationship with our pulmonology group, and our intent was to bring them into the health center, again, for accessibility and for cost savings for the member. But because of COVID, we've had some challenges with bringing them in, but we eventually will bring them into the health center. Again, here Dr. Hughes, we want to move him to full-time status so he can care for not only our medical patients, but also our workers' comp patients. One of the things that when we took over in October, right when we started seeing patients, I think I talked to a couple of you, we recognized that there was a high level of stress, anxiety, and so we brought in 2 mental health therapists into the facility. We're in the midst of right now finishing off a contract that we're going to be bringing in another therapist. Spanish-speaking therapist is what we're on the cusp of to provide therapy within the health center and also via telehealth so that they can help anybody who needs assistance from a mental health standpoint. Because remember, some of these from obesity and some of the diabetes and some of the other things can actually be drawn back to something from childhood. So it's good to have that because then again increases the access for your members to get the mental health therapy from all the stress that's out there. And we had this stress and we recognized this in October of last year. How bad do you think it is now with COVID? Having to go back into the work life and or hearing about your family members who are passing away from COVID. So we are bringing that into another therapist into the health center and contracting, I think, pretty good rates. DOT, we're continuing to do that. We restarted that after COVID had settled down a little bit, but we continue to do that from the employment side standpoint for screening.
How are we communicating the mental health availability, or is there any emails, or how does someone know that this is available?
We've really done it from the health center standpoint, just educating, and we've sent it out through emails from the district.
Okay, so it is being communicated.
Yeah, and so once we bring this therapist on board, especially if she's Spanish speaking, we'll get that out there because the goal is, the desire, the ask is to have her 20 hours a week to start. And as that continues to grow, then full-time or whatever.
To her point, I'm probably asking a question that already exists. We have new teacher hires, like orientation every year. Do we have somebody from the center there to kind of let them know, hey, these are the benefits that exist, that way they kind of all capture it at one time while they're in.
They come in for their blood work, and we don't have any onboarding
Onboarding,
patients anymore. But they do come to the health center to get their initial blood work, or not blood work, their blood test, pre-employment physicals. And at that point, the staff there does educate them on everything that's available.
Because I don't know how much time there is, but if there is ability, because I know I don't want to add, a 10-hour, orientation, make it 11. But if there's a possibility to go in there, kind of give them, a little brochure at the time, let them know, hey, this is the benefit. No shows, hey, are frowned upon, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kind of get them early,
Yeah, they don't, HR doesn't have those orientations anymore. They just schedule everything for them to send them here for fingerprinting and then the
So
health
they're going to be
center
exposed to the center.
Having engaged in benefits and benefit design and benefit communication for almost half a century, believe it or not, we're really big on communication, and I would have to, my observation for you at the board level is these people are top drawer. I've never seen the Think Creative, is that the marketing and the materials that have been put together and the internal resources that are being applied, this is, it's as good as I've ever seen. That still doesn't mean everybody doesn't just go, yeah, okay, and put it aside. But the quality of the messaging and the message is the best I've ever seen.
Yeah, I really like that Think Creative. I was really impressed with it. So here's our service scores. This is something that every patient that comes to the health center at the end of their visit will receive a survey. For November, we're at 4.79 for the month. So we continue to strive for excellence and to provide the best service that we possibly can. This just represents if you, the board, did not build your health center, okay, what could some of this cost? What would it have cost you per year? So at the end of every visit, we ask the patient, if you didn't have your health center, what would you have done? I would have gone to an outside urgent care facility, I would have gone to a PCP or a specialist, because remember, with your plan, the patients can just go to a specialist. Or they would have gone to the emergency room. This is what they're saying. And what we did was we took your data based on your ER per visit utilization, and this is how we extrapolated this number. Just to support, not only from the Rosen Medical Center side, because we've done it, this shows you did the right thing. Now, this is where we're gonna have some fun. So you heard us talk about Deer Walk. You saw on page 12 what Carolyn was talking about with the ER utilization related to specific diseases. This is our health center's cohorts. So let's work on the first one. So the first column, D01, diabetes, annual dilated eye exam. We're at 77.2%. Now, we're gonna continue to improve now that we've got that data and we can extrapolate who's coming to the health center and who didn't get it done. But we took the same cohort from the previous year just to show where were you prior to us taking on. So we're at 61%. On the foot exam, 84%, and before 63%. The areas that I want us to focus on are the highlighted ones. Annual microalbumin urine screening. Here we're at 82% versus 67%. What that looks for is, remember on the previous screen I talked about diabetic nephropathy? That's the kidneys. So with diabetes, it attacks the eyes, the kidneys, the feet, the nerves. We need to be looking for that. We need to be looking for signs of potential kidney problems. Because you saw you had chronic kidney disease was pretty high. Well, if we're not looking for it, how can we prevent it? Here we are, 82% versus 67%. On blood pressures and A1Cs, I need to look at this data. I don't know why previously it wasn't reported, but I'm focusing on, okay, what are we doing? How can we improve? And it could be because they couldn't afford their medicines before. Now we're making sure they get it through the ElectRx program that Mr. Barry is going to be talking about. But this tells us, okay, where can we improve? How do we attack? How do we call that member to find out, why isn't your diabetes under control? Oh, I'm not checking my blood sugar. Well, remember, we had that population. Where is that? Oh, great. Not a liar. It's up here somewhere.
What are you trying to get to?
The diabetics who were not checking their ear. Home glucose testing supplies in the last 12 months. Well, that's what we're addressing with that diabetic program, because those individuals were not getting it done. So if they're not checking their blood sugar, they don't know how well they're doing. Let's see, what else did I want to focus on? Okay, hyperlipidemia. You saw in the slides from Carolyn that high cholesterol levels was an issue. Well, if we're not checking the cholesterol level, how do we know? And here we're checking the cholesterol level, but also on lipid-lowering medicine. We recognize that you have a problem with your cholesterol. We all know cholesterol can cause heart attacks and strokes and ER visits, right? Well, if we're not treating them, we're not preventing them from having an issue. We see we're at 60% versus 34%. Same with the high blood pressure. You saw it before. Your hypertensive patients had a high ER visit rate. Why? They're not on medicine. Look at the rate before. or at least not compliant, or something. Here's telling us we're heading in the right direction. Annual lipid profile, flu vaccines, that, we didn't capture in our data because a lot of them went to Prescriptions Unlimited. Mr. Eric Larson did a great job. I think he did like 800 something flu shots. So we didn't capture that, but at least we're recognizing that that's continued to be a need. The colorectal screening, that's changed. We're actually going to reduce it just like the USPSTF said, reduce it to 45 years old and up. And we're going to be capturing that data, but 51% versus 34. And same with the screening mammograms. So all of this, we're heading in the right direction compared to what we saw from previously.
May I
And what we
ask just,
recognized.
I'm so sorry, Kenneth, for interrupting you. May I ask a clarification on just the data point? So eligible, is this a number of patients that are eligible or that have been identified to have these issues versus the number who's actually meeting with you guys? Or what is,
That's in the
help me
cohort.
understand the data point.
Yeah, this is just health center population.
Health
Health
center
center population that meets
So
that
you remember
criteria.
on Carolyn's, we had like 636 diabetics, I think it was.
So this would be members that go to the health center that are
Okay.
diabetic.
Yes.
So that would meet that criteria of this cohort,
These are my eligible folks.
correct?
Okay, and then the meeting are the people who are actually
Following up with the.
following up and doing the visits?
Who
Correct.
met that criteria. This means they didn't meet that criteria. Now, this is only our cohort, because remember, the diabetics, there was over 636 or something like that.
Didn't meet the criteria of getting the medical examination.
Correct.
That's what, okay,
So it means
then-
they go to the health center,
and they
they're
don't,
diabetic, but they
They didn't get it
didn't
done.
do it.
got it.
So we have no clue what they're doing externally. This is just folks.
They could be going,
The process is for the non-health center population, we're gathering the data we need so we can identify the people that we need to focus on, and there will be a proactive outreach to engage them either through the health center or through the general medical
Yeah,
community.
is that where we talk to Ether? Cause if Ether's processing claims to an external vendor and they're processing claims with the code indicating, diabetes, are we trying to track that employee to bring them in here versus staying outside, or are we just not messing with that population?
That data is all fed into Deerwalk.
Deerwalk.
And not sure who's gonna talk about Natasha, but she's actively reaching out, and I think you've met her when you came on the tour. She's the care coordinator that reaches out to our employees to try and get them engaged to get these gaps closed.
And again, that speaks to the wisdom of your administrative folks putting the health center and the overall health population together so that they're not operating in different spheres.
And I guess the last question to that real quick is, if we do convince a patient to come over, how difficult is it to get the medical records transferred over so there's a continuum of care? Are we having difficulty convincing outside providers to give us access to all the records?
That's a clinician question.
Yeah.
No, so previously,
Let's,
Ask Clarence.
It was a little bit of a challenge. Now it's if they are seeing an outside physician, it's just a collaboration, they send us those records. So we can get that.
we had a bearer baton, and all I had to do was press a button, Cigna or Florida Hospital would send the records, and we didn't get them. So it had to get very nasty, and we had to threaten, and then we finally started giving data.
Because don't the records belong to the patient? If the patient requests it, don't they have to give it to
Yeah,
the
that was the
patient?
other, they wanted us at the time to go to every patient, I think we did it,
Oh, I know.
we did it and have
Individual
everyone
request.
sign a document. Even though the contract said we owned the records, not the hospital. It was quite a work.
So again, this data is specific to the health center, and we have data to look at the entire population, but it also included the health center. We couldn't create two cohorts yet, but we're working on that. But ultimately, I'm very pleased as to see where we're heading and where we're going in relation to, again, outcomes. Not how many heads are we seeing every single second, but what are the outcomes? To me, if a patient came in one time a year and they're a diabetic and they're doing everything right, that's fine. That's fine. But if they're not, we've got to give them all the tools that they need from an accessibility standpoint in your health center, and that's what we are building for you. So we're working on some really cool things that we're still vetting through some programs in your health center. So I can't wait till Lauren gets to tell you about that. Any other questions for me?
Two more. The big one is the vaccines for COVID. We're not administering that at all? Or like, if it does come out, because obviously it's one came out, I mean,
So the
is that
dream
gonna
would
be at the
be-
county or is that gonna be at us or is that gonna be
The
given to
dream
us?
would be, we would be administering,
But do we have the fridges to hold it?
$16,000 for the fridge, but if we, so there's the Pfizer product, there's the Moderna, and then AstraZeneca now has to go back to clinical trials because of some issues. But right now, the state of Florida, they're only giving us like 180,000 doses. Well, guess what? That's only gonna serve 90,000 people. So right now, the criteria is number one, high-risk providers, and that's probably gonna be your ER, your ICU. Second is your nursing home population, because 40% of the deaths were coming from there. And third is gonna be greater than 65. Right now, I talked to Orange County Health Department, they're not gonna be getting it till sometime next year. I talked to some of our vendors, they're not getting it. We actually had to go into what is called Florida Shots. We've registered through Florida Shots, so as soon as we know that we're gonna get it, we can make a decision then. Is it gonna be the Pfizer product or is it gonna be the Moderna? If it's gonna be the Moderna, we don't need to spend 16 grand. So let's hold off a little bit on that.
Dr. Pace?
I would just simply add that the Emergency Operations Center here in Osceola County and our local Department of Health have been having ongoing discussions about vaccine distribution and have a plan in place once the vaccines become more available. But Bianca at the Department of Health and obviously Bill at the EOC, they've been tremendous partners throughout this whole process with us, so I have no doubt that they will have that. The other piece is trying to educate our governor and team that we really believe educators ought to be moved up on that list. I mean, obviously, people are very, very vulnerable, but with the value that we've placed on education in the state of Florida, opening schools, operating schools, I think educators need to be not down the list, but further up the list when the time comes for more availability.
100%.
And then I appreciate it too, Dr. Pace, how we don't duplicate the effort as well. If the county's having its own operation with infrastructure, there's no need for us to build our own sub-infrastructure when it already exists there.
But I did speak with Lauren actually just this morning about following up with Orlando Health, our other major partner who's gonna have more access to the tests, perhaps the vaccinations than perhaps we will at a private level or even a public entity level, to make sure that if educators come on that list, we have a plan in place to get our folks vaccinated who wanna be vaccinated.
Barry, before you start, we've been sitting here an hour. Does everybody want to take a couple minutes? Are we good to keep going?
That was gonna be my question.
We'll be back in about 5 minutes, so.
Yeah.
Four
I
minutes.
I told our team, just because we have an hour and a half doesn't mean we have to take an hour and a half. So,
I appreciate it. We're not trying to say we don't like
where we've been so far, Carolyn tried to explain the situation that was in place when we first engaged. And again, we're so appreciative that Dr. Pace and Ms. Graber and Lauren and her team embraced some of the ideas that we had, because we knew at some point in time the question has to be asked. In fact, I think it's been asked, is what is the district doing to lower the cost of health insurance for the members? Because it is expensive. It's expensive everywhere. If you go on the federal exchange and try and buy individual insurance, unless you meet the particular criteria for significant subsidies, healthcare is expensive in this country. So our overall objective was to move from what we view as a passive approach to healthcare, health insurance, which is hire Blue Cross or United or whoever to manage it and hope that they do a good job, to a little bit more active approach. When you use an insurance company, it's easy. You only have to deal with it once a year. It can be ugly, but it's easy. BUCA is Blue Cross, United, Cigna, Aetna, and Humana. When I started out, I knew the day would come when I would use that phrase. Back when I started, there were like 38 insurance companies. Today, there's essentially 5 with a few regional players. More and more have gone to the approach the board here has taken to hire an independent administrator, purchase reinsurance on the open market rather than from a captive insurance company, and take greater control of your plan. You've seen this earlier, and we shouldn't have had that twice, Carolyn, but the fact of the matter is a lot of people believe it is the amount of regulation, lack of transparency, and profit making from the middlemen that is driving a lot of the cost of healthcare these days. So one of my favorite quotes is Einstein: "We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them." And that's significant here. So what we proposed was the district build their own health plan. You know, this started in November of 2018. I met with Mr. Wishire, and my suggestion was, why not use the district's purchasing power in the marketplace to drive better solutions and better outcomes and better results than relying on being part of an insurance company's broader pool. So we start with what you've seen, active data managing. That means not just looking at the data like it was a rear view mirror of what happened and why our costs went up, but using it as a GPS and saying what's going on here and how can we use this data to find out what's going on and influence it moving along. The health center is at the core. Congratulations on that move. We don't see that as often as we should. Disease management, as Kenneth pointed out, what are we going to do for the diabetics? How do we eliminate the barriers to care, both geographic and cost? The MAP program guiding people to more effective sources. UMDMCM is utilization management, disease management, and case management for large cases. Direct contracting is right at the heart of what we've been doing, cutting out the middlemen and contracting direct. And we've developed some pretty good pharmacy optimization opportunities, as you'll see. Carolyn put this map together really for Lair, the head of the union, and because he had a hard time visually. You know, most people go, and I'll use your previous administrator, Cigna. Well, that's Cigna. And here we brought together best-in-class partners onto a common platform, which I think this new communication system's working really well, where everybody's posting to the same board. The only thing missing here, because what this shows is we've got the Center for Health, we have Aether, which is our claims administrator and overall guidance to the program, MAP for medical advocacy, and then pharmacy management. And I would tell you the only thing missing is in the center of this, in the very heart of it, should be a picture of Lauren and Latasha.
That's true.
Because
true.
they are the beating heart of your program and are on top of it and help guide our efforts to make better decisions. Active management starts with the data. Again, Deer Walk. Frank, you mentioned under the prior administrative contract, your service provider claimed it wasn't your data. It was their data. And it was next to impossible to extract meaningful data out of this. Well, now we made certain that this district owns the data and has unfettered access to it.
Just for the record, that's part of our counterclaim in court against Cigna. The data they didn't give us, the contract says we own the data.
So we use Deer Walk to risk stratify and identify members that need special treatment and care in terms of their disease state management. I like the phrase Carolyn and Kenneth coined, mind the gap in care and mend the gap in care. You can't do that if you don't identify and see the gaps in care. Identify unnecessary or wasteful utilization. That allows us in plan design. We believe in activated plan designs. You know, historically, your out-of-pocket costs, if you had a knee replacement for you as a insured, would be the same whether you went to a facility that charged $130,000 or a facility that only charged $82,000. Your out-of-pocket's the same, so what's your driver to cause you to make better decisions for yourself consistent with quality, but also to save the plan money? And we can measure the effectiveness and the return on investment that you have made. One of the points Carolyn made earlier is the little bucket, the fixed cost. We're gonna spend more in fixed costs because we're bringing in resources to impact the claims bucket. And over time, you will see a return on that investment. Overall, as we mentioned, the spend was 17% higher. 1% of your members represent 35% of your total plan cost, but that's because bad things happen. People get sick, people get cancer, people have heart attacks, people need kidney transplants. The next 4% represents another 33%. The emergency room treatment activity in this group has been very large, and we've got programs focused on that. The average cost of the emergency room is higher. Again, how do we get people to impact their utilization so that they use fewer services more wisely? Where do they go for the treatment? And how do we impact the unit cost of that treatment at the point of service? Data analytics was absolutely critical in our plan decides. Yes.
Now, for ER, are we tracking if it's through an ambulance or self-admittance? Because a lot of times if there's an ambulance, they have no choice. I mean, if I have a heart attack, I gotta go, it's going to the ER no matter what. But if I'm self-admitting, to me, that's where you have a choice, because now they're getting in their vehicle and they can choose where they go.
That's the area we're focusing on and trying to bend the curve on. We're looking at a program called the Crucialist that is specifically directed at migrating people from the ER to less costly events and atmosphere. And Kenneth, you mentioned
The frequent flyer, people that go to the ER a lot, whether they need it or not. So I really a plan that engaged with those people.
Yeah, I think it was 60% of the ER utilization could be avoided. And then there's a number of them that are frequent flyers that can be avoided. But again, going back to a lot of the things that I talked about earlier, if we can fix those things, it might also impact the emergency room. But we're working on some ways to mitigate that because your spend on the ER is significant.
well, and when I'm sorry, someone had
I
a
was just
point.
gonna say, what we look at each month is steerable versus non-steerable.
Right.
So the heart attack was a non-steerable ER visit, that was absolutely essential, as you mentioned, regardless of how you got there. But if somebody's going for a sore throat, then that's what we call steerable. You could go to urgent care, you could go to one of the walk-in clinics, you could wait until tomorrow to see your doctor or or go to the health center, that type of stuff. So we look at that each month and it's in your monthly report, you'll see on one of the pages.
and we're in a world of working on carrots right now, but at some point in time, if the abuse becomes bad enough, we may need to have a stick. And a lot of health plans these days say, if you go to the emergency room and it is not deemed an emergency, it's not covered. Now, that's extreme, but we could have a case-specific copay, but that's what we work on over time, and of course, we have to get the buy-in from the unions and that sort of thing. But what this is all about, I've mentioned before, and that is to reduce barriers to care. Design incentives to encourage better decision-making. And this is something you cannot do with a traditional insurance carrier format. So that's why we had to take control and help you to design your own plan. I think we've seen a lot of this in the previous slides. The utilization of the ER is much higher. You know, Kenneth was doing some analysis, and he believes that 60 to 65% of ER visits result in an admission, even if it's just for 23 hours of observation.
Right.
Well, that's because these people, that's how they get paid, you know? So we have to take control of it. Comorbidities is a real problem with diabetes. That's a comorbidity with obesity or hyperlipidemia, which is a given almost. So we had low office visits, high emergency room utilization, and the average cost per member was significantly higher for the diabetics. And again, we covered this, so, and you have it in hard copy. If you have questions, I'd be glad to. I don't know why we duplicated this in this particular.
Well, one was specific to the health center, this is specific to everybody else,
It's the
or the
total
whole plan.
population.
Okay. I don't think there's anything unique about those two groups that would make the results mechanically any different. Cancer, 311 people with cancer. I mean, this is, you know, expensive stuff. With the people with cancer, however, office visits were 13% below the benchmark. Again, barriers to care. We had a very high hospital admission rate. The cost per member per year is very expensive. So again, these are things that we are paying attention to and are putting in some programs to impact them. So a few impact initiatives. The first thing, October 1st, we have a new third-party administrator, a new network, new systems, a new pharmacy benefit manager. It's built from the ground up. And we have had a rocky path just because change is what it is, change, and people have to get used to it. But the health plan, we did away with networks per se, and we have 3 tiers. Networks, I think, have run their course. Most people don't know the first network, at least in Atlanta, Georgia, was in 1995. We've only had it 25 years. And it was a great idea when it started, but the PPO, the Preferred Provider Network, is now everybody's in the network, and we've lost the leverage and the advantage of it. So our health plan has Tier 1 direct contracts with Orlando Health, a miracle contract with Osceola Regional, and I say it's a miracle because that's an HCA hospital, and HCA is the big dog in hospitals nationwide, and they don't play. Because of our vision and the market leverage of this school system, we were able to get incredible rates from HCA Osceola. Nemours is part of
Can I
Tier
add
1.
one thing on that?
Yes.
A lot of kudos go to our chairman and to community leaders who sit on that board, who helped us behind the scenes getting that done.
Well, and I would say to you, working with Connie as well,
Yeah.
on the
They
details.
were very helpful in our getting to the objective.
That also includes the Poinciana hospital as well.
So our Tier 1 is direct contracts with very special, trust me, very special pricing. True partners in delivering the services to your people. Tier 2 are hospitals that we invited in that have contracts comparable to what they have with the traditional insurance companies,
Physicians.
hospitals as well. So far, we have not had another major hospital system raise their hand and say, I'm willing to take what you paid through Cigna and we'll see your patients. We've invited, but we don't have any takers on that yet. And as a result, we do have physicians and ancillary providers that are more expensive than tier one, but comparable or a little bit on the less side to what they were getting under the Cigna contract. And then tier three is everyone else. And frankly, we meet them where they are. We dictate what we pay. And that's where, if there's gonna be any friction over time because of balanced billing. But the more we can get, and so far, I think the statistic I saw was 86% of our
Yes.
treatment was in tier one.
It's the next one.
82%.
So this is kind of the results through November 30th, and I want to point out some things. All claims, $10,506,000.
2 months.
8,300 of those claims were in tier one. That's pretty darn good.
8 million.
For facilities, tier one facilities are at 6,000,004 out of a total of 7,000,007. So we've converted and moved a lot of our expensive care into that tier one facility. So we've got 74% in tier one and 79% in tier two, or tier one facilities. That's a pretty good start for 2 months.
What's the difference between tier one and tier one facility?
Sorry?
What's the difference between a tier one and a tier one facility?
Tier one includes facilities, which are hospitals, ambulatory surgery centers and things like that, and the physicians that are affiliated with it. So, and we've got here it is. And by the way, this is evolving as more and more people hear about what we're doing. We're getting more hand raisers amongst the physician community. But we've got 3,102 physicians in tier one. It's a pretty good base. You ought to be able to find a good physician close by in tier one. And again, keep in mind that the activated plan design encourages you through lower copays and lower out-of-pockets to migrate to a tier one provider. Eliminating barriers to care. You know, the average cost of a CT scan nationwide in 2019 was $2,007. But we saw some in excess of $30,000 paid, not billed, but paid under your prior contract. The benchmark for a CT scan is $1,336. And of that, the employee would pay an average of $829 to have a CT scan.
That's part of our lawsuit too, so you know.
You know, when I saw a $37,000 CT scan, I said, you know, I fully understand there's outliers, but how on earth, and that's paid. That was actually a claim that came in and someone looked at it and said, yeah, we'll pay that. I mean, so we negotiated a direct contract with Green Imaging, and it's a brilliant idea. They're using excess capacity of radiology groups and saying, hey, we can help put patients, but we need a deep discount. So we're paying $300 to $450 for these scans. More importantly, the employee, instead of paying a deductible, average $829 is paying $0. And these are radiology groups in the community. They're not connected in any way other than through this central direct contracting methodology. Eliminating the barrier to care. The same thing's true with MRIs and other imaging. This alone is going to save, well, so far we've saved $1,100,000. And that's word of mouth. Now we've done a better job at open enrollment of spreading the word. But very importantly, the members got their imaging services for free. Everybody wins. International sourcing. We don't know where this is headed with the new administration, but for the last couple of years, it has been against the law to import medicines, but nobody's paying attention to it. So we went out And we started the program in January of 2019. We target some very expensive medicines. If you look on here, a lot of these medicines are for diabetes, Januvia, you know, and none of these medicines cure you. They help you maintain. So this is the gift that keeps on giving.
Barry, I want to point out that these medicines that we're buying from, what I call countries like Britain or Canada,
Tier 1 countries.
are made by the same manufacturer making the exact medicine for us, but we're buying it in America.
That's right.
No.
It's not like we're going to Burma and saying, come up with something.
Is it under the same brand name too, or is it a different brand name?
Same brand,
Same brand name.
Even same name and
Oh,
everything,
it's
Right.
unbelievable.
same package.
we just source it elsewhere.
What was the Humira savings? That's out there, remember?
What
So-
savings?
Humira?
Well,
Humira,
Humira normally costs $5,200 a month, and I think we're getting it for around $2,200 a month. You know, the other things that kind of go on, I saw an ad the other day, and I think it was for diabetes, and it said, we're combining two medicines. Well, that's called a compound drug. So, and I've seen where they take a medicine that is 80 cents and a medicine that is $1.20, and when they put it together, it's $600 a month. And at some point in time, we say, hey, how about taking 2 pills instead of 1? You know, I mean, there's just so much stuff going on in pharmaceuticals, it's ridiculous. But from January to September, again, just with organic word of mouth, we saved $525,000. And again, members got much needed expensive medication for free. Not only is that an economic boon or raise for those people, but we eliminated the barrier to care so that people are becoming more compliant with the drugs that will keep them from spending a lot of money on health. It's called ElectRx. And I was really excited, the health center has actually added an additional employee where we're, again, active management. We look at the data. Oops, someone's taken Celerix, $22,000 a month, we can get it for $9,000 a month. Proactive call out. We can get this to you for free instead of it would cost $200.
Mary, that was actually at the recommendation of the board, probably, I think about a year ago. I think it was Tim Weishauer said, if it's do well, why don't we have somebody reach out to the members
That's right.
through them? And that's how Natasha came to us.
But that's an example of your team that is looking at the data and doing something about it.
One of our challenges that I've seen lately is a lot of these companies have coupons, so they could also get that same medication for a lower copay or $0 copay. So our employees don't really, they just don't care because they're getting it for free or for $5 or whatever it is. So we're thinking of different ways that we'd have to negotiate with the union to see that we can drive them to these lower cost programs.
We did have a situation happen about a month ago. There was one medication that we were receiving through the program, and that medication actually went generic in the United States. So internationally, it was more expensive than generic in the States. So we stopped the international program and said we will now source it domestically through Eric Larson, our local pharmacist here. Again, we want to bring everything local if we can, and Eric's been a great partner with us. And but the member here, when we were arranging it with them, they had that brand card, and they were mandating that they wanted to get the brand name drug because they had this copay card from the drug manufacturer, and they wanted to get the brand name drug with the copay card that still cost them nothing. And Eric tried to explain to them that it cost the school district $7,000 more a month for the brand name drug than the generic, and it was therapeutically, had the exact same effectiveness, and the member didn't care. And so we had to go back and reverse it and then put it back internationally to put it back and save the school money.
Well, the pharmaceutical companies are kicking back, so you got a brand that's now I'm gonna make these numbers up, but relatively, this is the case. You got a brand that is 10,000, we can get it for 4,000 internationally, it comes out generic, domestic at 2,000. The manufacturer has the same data we have about who's taking their medicine, so they reach out and say, hey, here's a coupon, you can get the brand drug for free. Right? Well, most people would rather have brand than generic, or there's some panache to that. So they're trying to migrate your members to the brand, which is free like it was under ElectRx, but now it's costing you $7,000 a month more. These are the games that we're facing and that you can only attack with active management and someone paying attention.
So we had to try to think of something to approach these members, and Eric tried to explain the generic medications and how the therapeutic effectiveness of it, but come up with something to say the therapeutic effectiveness, but also saving the school district money with that. So at that time, we had to just make that decision, so.
So that issue only exists when there's a generic, right? Because
That particular issue,
if
yes.
it's a brand name, international's cheaper, they don't even know what they're getting it for. They just know that they're getting the same brand name, so it's not a concern.
That's right.
It's only a concern when it's a generic that comes out under a different name, because a generic can be the same therapeutic effect, but it's under a different label or something like that.
If over time, we hope to align better outcomes for the plan, better outcomes for the members, better outcomes for the union. And once we're in alignment, we can do miracles.
I will tell you, last month, I've used the same pharmacist I've used since I've been on the school board, and the same pharmacy, but it's public. And he handed me all my prescriptions, says, I don't know what has happened to the school district, but your handling of prescriptions amazing compared to what it used to be. I actually got 90-day supplies for the same total price as 30 days, and he's never been able to get, so, and he just off the cuff, he doesn't know.
That's the kind of stuff we wanna hear.
Yay.
Yes, sir,
Is
Mr.
this
Bass.
platform working? And obviously, you've got the statistics showing, and our cost savings is due to our footprint. We've got so many employees. I've heard this brought up in conversation before, but why isn't there like alliances formed between municipalities to expand that cost to even more?
It is not,
Let me explain that.
Okay.
Prior to you all coming on board, we have had dialogue with the county about potentially aligning and joining. We deliberately have done nothing to make sure we get this up really efficient and running for the district. Then we'll look at the other. The second background is you run into their advisors who have their deals with insurance companies and yada. So you got a lot of politic when you get into it. But our main focus from day one was, from the board and the superintendent, was make this work. And we didn't feel we were able to take anything on until we got it really humming.
When we did the health center, when we built it 4 years ago, I think, I talked to the two cities, Tuttle-Water County. And one of them said, we're all in to do it together, you just sign up with us and do what we're doing.
But when you start comparing, I think as time goes on, if you compare our numbers in these, it's only gonna make sense for other municipalities to
I
come
think if we
on
can get
board.
this figured out, they're gonna wanna talk.
Well,
Part of the challenge is our demographics. You saw that in one of the earlier slides, predominantly women of childbearing age. That puts us into a different actuarial cost factor than what the demographics of some of the other entities look like. So the challenge is always who pays what share, so to speak, depending on the cost of your employees. But I do think it's something that we can work through as we get this right.
and you know, the best way to do that would be to form what's called a captive, where each entity gets to keep their own plan design, their own reinsurance, but you have an extra layer of reinsurance and consistent protocols and initiatives to drive down the cost of everything, because it's the claims that are costing you, not the resources that you're applying.
Because that's what I was thinking, like, to the outside sources, if you see an outside provider, then that municipality has their own, but the health center could be shared. And the health center is a fixed cost, that doesn't change any different. The only thing is you may have to hire a couple more nurses or anything like that, Right now, the municipality has to pay for everything. They have to pay for another building, they have to pay for a new medical doctor. And you're right, if we were to synergistically work together, you just pay for one MD or one doctor. You just only pay marginal cost. So
Then
you're
you
right,
can-
so that-
But
then
everybody
you could
got
have
somebody
five-
in their ear that's making a bunch of money, telling them why it's a horrible idea.
Like, when we did the ophthalmology one, Kenneth, remember, we basically said, you can have this opportunity, but you're buying the equipment, we're not. You're making the investment, we'll let you use the space to help us.
And that's why it took a little while, because we were waiting for the equipment.
But if you aggregate these groups, now you can have 6 health centers geographically convenient to everyone and spread the cost over more lives.
And and when talking about, Mr. Bass,
We've only got 20 minutes
Yeah.
here, so.
You got it, John.
Yeah, you lower the cost.
what we
Just
learned,
realize that you have a gargantuan block of the established insurance agents and healthcare providers not wanting to see this work and not wanting any change.
And we're getting major pushback and I don't think we've seen the brunt of it yet from some of the hospital systems. They're watching what's going on and at some point in time, we're gonna be getting into their pocket, so.
what we know about, when we talk about the pharmacy situation, is we could not get any credible data on our pharmacies from the incumbent. And when we were out to the RFP, pharmacy is an extremely difficult thing to understand. So the school district hired a pharmacy consultant to help us understand the pricing mechanism that goes into the pharmacy pricing system. And they're monitoring for us because there's so much behind the system, because you would just think the ingredient cost or whatever is there. There's so much ways that they can make money behind there that we don't even understand. So the one thing that we think is, oh, well, it's this much money. There's so much things behind there that they're making money every which way.
The pharmacy consultant works for you, not for the insurance company or the PBM, and that's the difference. We've only got a short time, and I do wanna leave open for questions. My objective was to give you the big picture, that there's a reason behind everything that we're doing, and it all focuses on the active management of your healthcare spending. My partner, Carl Schusler, who's not here, he's probably in a deer stand, who's not here, his saying is, it takes a little bit of courage and a good advisor. And we certainly think of ourselves as good advisors, but we can't say enough about the courage and the steps of the board at the time, Dr. Pace, Sarah, to take this step, because we've been doing this for 5 or 6 years, frankly, and with great success, but nothing at this scale. So it was courageous, and we do need to stay the course. I'm gonna go through some quick things. One of the things we did was we hired an opioid management company to come in, because anytime you have a group this size with comorbidities and chronic issues, there's gonna be an element of pain medication that's going on. And what we learned in the process is the therapeutic value of pain medicine for an acute situation dissipates in about 7 to 10 days, meaning you've done all you can. People are staying on the medication, and for the most part, they're staying on the medication because of the side effects of coming off the pain medication, which leads to dependency. Not to mention, we've got ample statistics that show that the additional clinical costs for people that are on pain medication is considerably higher than people that are not. So, costs also start accumulating about 5 months before any formal behavioral health diagnosis. It's not hard to identify someone who has an addiction problem, but the clinical costs are occurring 5 months before there was enough anecdotal data to identify someone with a problem. So, through data mining, we found 222 members with a pattern of potential inappropriate usage. we found 177 doctors had prescribed medications to those 222 members. So we brought in this opioid clinical management program. They do not bother the patient. They do not contact your member. They contact the prescribing physicians and say, here's a pattern that we're a little concerned about. Here's the appropriate protocols for this. And as a result, after 6 months, we're down to 119 members who had symptoms of opioid side effects. 91% of the contacted physicians are now in compliance with best practices. And that's gonna have a multiple effect over time for all of the patients they see. So we had a decrease of 103 members. We figure it saved the school district in direct costs and added clinical costs about $1.5 million.
Barry?
Yes, sir.
Kenneth, so the board has the benefit, you have me do all that research of what we do not prescribe at the clinic. So if they hear from an employee, if you'll let them know what we don't prescribe, I can explain what the experts provided me when you had it researched.
Yeah,
Any controlled substance.
yeah, any controlled substances from the health center, because of the type of the population, the demands, and we wanna make sure your health center is used appropriately, and that we're also able to guide patients to appropriate specialists who are gonna monitor those individuals and have advanced degrees over the MDs from a primary care standpoint, like the psychiatrists, like the pain medicine physicians.
Kenneth had me research the issue, and the experts at Shands, University of Rochester, and Miami all said, if you're getting into that level 1, and the one doctor really made it clear to me, you should not have a general practitioner trying to deal with hormone issues for a woman and giving those kind of level 1 drugs. It should be somebody who's an expert in dealing that. They then went on to say, GPs historically just kept refilling prescriptions. I can tell you, sadly, my nephew, who was 31, was one of them, and overdosed on it and died. So I've seen it myself, but I went to the 3 places that had experts in pharmacology, the doctors, and they went, absolutely not. You're opening a door to a problem. The other thing they said was you're putting the treating physicians in a terrible spot, because if you allow them to make that judgment, you're gonna have some that go okay, some that don't, and you're gonna have a clinic with all different things going on. So we legally recommended to Kenneth that they stay with the position that they're not going to prescribe that. That's gonna come from an expert in the field that deals with that type issue.
But in the data, we can see which members have gone to more than one doctor to fill a prescription.
Doctor shopping.
That's a big red flag. We can see doctors who have been overprescribing, and that's why we engaged in the program. You're familiar with the MAP program, the Medical Advocacy Program. Earlier, one of you asked about the effectiveness of the communications on an item. I gotta tell you, the first month, we had almost 1,200 calls to MAP. That blew my mind. That meant someone was paying attention and gets it. And so we have better care, a better cost, and very importantly, a better benefit because of the activated plan design. If you take the steps to seek more cost-effective quality care, you're rewarded. We'll waive the deductible for that particular procedure. And if they don't, the plan pays regular benefits. So it's a carrot as opposed to a carrot and a stick.
Is it online too? Cause it says phone calls.
It
There's
is.
internet search too.
It is, it's all online and phone calls. We just introduced a telehealth opportunity. You had one before, but it was like a $25 copay. I mean, it's $41 for a telehealth visit versus $128 if you go see a doctor. But we're actually putting a barrier to the telehealth, not to mention the administrative complexity of collecting from someone over the phone with credit cards and stuff like that.
I think you negotiate to 38.
Well, I'm talking about everything we do is cheaper. So we've taken you from passive management to active management, and we're proud to be your partner. We're excited about succeeding together. That will make some careers on our side of the table. Not me, I'm, moving to Florida. But very importantly, our work has just begun. And we couldn't be more delighted to have internal partners like Lauren and Latasha, and guidance from Dr. Pace and Ms. Graber, and of course Frank's legal oversight. We're gonna make this work, and we're gonna bend that cost curve down. We're gonna lower the cost of health insurance to your members.
Mr. Chairman, could I point out something that's very important, because we're in litigation against Cigna. We're about to file on Gallagher. Despite having an insurance company you paid a lot of money to get you the best insurance, and then having Cigna do a deal, not one thing you heard today did they ever do for us. Not one thing.
That doesn't make them bad people, they're just playing a different game. And their stockholders are benefiting mightily from their prowess in that game. We've just changed the game.
You're kind, I'm the lawyer, they bad people.
One point of order, Mr. Chair, we have like an executive session one day scheduled, because we're talking about active lawsuit, just so we can kind of get up to date on. We can only speak so much in a public forum.
Right. In fact, I want to schedule in January discussions on those two lawsuits. Because one we're just about to file, we're in against Cigna, we're about to go against Gallagher because they got 3.1 million in commissions. They didn't disclose to us, and the board understood they were paying
183,500.
183,000 a year flat rate with no commissions to be paid on the elective insurance. Our employees basically paid, in my opinion, 1 million more than they should have. So.
And I would say
they offered me 100,000, and that wasn't acceptable, so.
Per member?
Sure.
Yeah. I would say this.
We're not paying anything for the litigation because I got skilled lawyers to take it on a contingency basis. We win. Great.
I would say this, we recognize that that's the other pattern that happens. I think it's important for you as a board to understand that the deal we cut with Frank and Dr. Pace and the board, our better outcomes are aligned with yours. The bulk of our compensation is a percentage of what we save you off of the benchmarks. So we cannot make money if you do not save money. And as a result, again, our objectives are in alignment with yours.
One other thing changed, that the board changed. When I first came on, the clinic was already, and all I watched, Dr. Pace knows this, was the insurance people coming in and saying, you're $1 million over budget this month, you're 300, never proposed, just reporting. When this got set up, it was, you're gonna report to the board quarterly, you're gonna give detailed data, and we're gonna track everything, and the board's gonna know why dollars are being spent. It was never done in the past.
So can I ask a question?
Sure.
How soon before you guys come back and tell us that we're gonna be able to reduce what our members are paying by or whatever?
We are calculating the PM for Sarah on a quarterly basis. Oh, I'm sorry.
Our job is to save money on the spend side. Your job is to decide how best to direct any funds that we're successful in freeing up.
And I'll just, Mr. Goy, I think we're probably about 2 years out. We wanna make sure that we see the expense side going down to a reasonable level, obviously keep our trust fund solvent with the required minimum. And then the way that we would approach it longer term would be that the money that's going into the plan could slowly be reduced.
Yeah, because
I don't wanna cut that too soon and then have a problem again.
Yeah, because I do agree with them though, because I almost had a heart attack, to be honest with you, because I care about my teachers, man. And I was like, man, when I saw like a family being covered for over $1,000 a month. I was floored because, somebody mentioned Obamacare. I'm thinking, man, if I go to Obamacare unsubsidized, $50,000 a month. I mean $50,000 a year, more or less, as an average salary. What would I be paying? So I at least want our district plan to be and that's like with no subsidies. It has to be better than that. So I think that's
No,
No.
it's more,
No, it's way
a
more,
lot more.
it's a lot more.
A family's gonna pay
like, what is the average? Yeah, like,
$2,000.
I went on Obamacare, that's
$1,600 to
$2,000, no
$20,000.
subsidies at all.
1,600 to 2,400 a month.
Yeah, about
I'm
$1,600 to
telling you,
$2,000 a month.
it's a crisis.
With the high deductible, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, now for the
and that's with a crappy plan.
for the less well-heeled, I mean, my daughter got it for free. And she's 30 years old, but if she didn't have a subsidy, it would have been $350 a month.
I think
I'm
that the
telling you.
majority of
It's a crisis,
people, the majority of our members would be receiving subsidies,
sure.
and they would be paying about the same, I imagine.
Well, we can, if it would help the board, we can run, 35, 40, 45, 50, single and family on the exchange with the, reasonable estimate for incomes and give you a view. But I think this shows you that even before we save money, your contributions for your employees and the board contribution is not out of line.
But because your plan is considered credible coverage, then that eliminates you from going to the exchange.
So that's fine, right?
I mean, your plan, your design of your plan is very rich as far as your deductibles go, your co-pays go, compared to the open market, what's out there for other commercial plans. What your deductibles and co-pays are is very generous. Hardly any of my other traditional groups have no premium for the employee-only plan.
And again, what we've tried to provide is opportunities for the employees to have lower out-of-pocket costs for services if they go where it has better outcomes for the
Correct.
client.
Because the other consideration, just to throw it out there, because we're at board meeting, it's transparent, I can talk to everyone, is not even being self-insured. I mean, how are other, what are other employers doing? I'm just talking about as benchmark, just for talking out there. I like what you're doing, I like the trend line. But, because the other consideration is not being self-insured, we just became insured, just like everybody else, and just, subsidize that. What would that cost be? I mean, our other entities, what are they paying?
Going back
What
to
are other
fully insured?
It's two school districts, I think, in the state that.
Just so I can compare something with. And I'm not saying anything is wrong, I'm
Going
just
back to
alright.
the Buka bill?
like who's
That's on- that's-
who's not self-insured, just paying an insurer, and what is the average employee cost?
Well, your cost would go, so
Hills-
you'd go back,
You're paying $68.26, the board. Hillsborough, which is fully insured, $7,500. Marion, $8,400. And that's the Volusia, $6,600. That's just the board contribution. And if you look at what they're charging, that's what this chart does. If you look in Hillsborough County, it's $753 per pay period for health insurance for a family, and it's $580
And
here.
that board contribution, I put a middle of the ground one because theirs is tiered. So their single employee gets less than a family employee under, and I can
Right.
send you Hillsborough's numbers if you'd like to see those.
But contribution strategy is a totally separate conversation, which we can give you advice, input, and anecdotal data. But right now, we're focusing on driving down the cost of.
Okay, I got you. So just so we're on the same sheet of music, yeah, 'cause so like Orange County, if a teacher wants to teach here, Orange County's paying for the full family $896 per pay period. So technically, we wanna compare apples with apples and say, hey, our school district is performing better than the other one.
And back when I did a comparison back when you were on the board before to now, our single coverage for the most expensive plan has gone up $25 per paycheck. Family coverage has gone up $50, so that's pretty good for an 8-year period.
Right, compared to the rate of inflation for.
Yeah.
And Orange County is bleeding so bad on this, they put out an RFI the other week asking for everybody to give them thoughts on how they could control their health care.
Right here.
And they have gala girls.
For clarity's sake, I just wanna make sure that one of the things that people hate about government is that it seems like they take in an income, right? There's an intended purpose to that income. and then they never see it back, right? Like tolls, you talk about this, it's the same thing. What I'd like to do, I mean, my intention would be to avoid that kind of situation with the healthcare plan. If we're saving $2 million, or here we saved $1 million in one aspect or another, then that would be about $170 to each member, across our district. So if we're saving $5 million or whatever it is that we're saving in the end, and I've had the discussion, it's not like I'm saying that we should be cutting checks tomorrow to the teachers because of this. But that would be the entire intent, right? The entire intent of doing a program like this is twofold. One, to save costs, but not cost to us who we don't feel, but cost to the teachers, the members, right? And the second would be that in the end, we reduce that cost as quickly as we can, right? I mean, that's the purpose of your guys' brain power that you're contributing to the program, right? I mean,
We just bring it down, you guys do the financing behind it.
It is.
That's their job.
But that conversation's above our pay grade.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's very important to keep in mind when we talk about these savings amounts. This is not, we're saving this money and now therefore this money is now available to do something else with. It's not savings, it's cost avoidance. So this is money that we are not having to spend in the first place. So it's not like, oh, now we have millions of dollars, we can go do something else with this money.
sure.
Our goal is to get.
But
Our
you do
goal is to
have
get to
cost
actually have
avoidance
cost
and you do have
savings,
cost
but I mean, at some
savings, right?
point, the cost saving, the overall number, that's the benchmark I like to see the most, is the overall cost of the trust fund go down.
Yeah,
Cost
remember-
savings is okay.
Is the trust fund was
Less
subsidized,
help.
Sarah, for the past 4 years, you've had to supplement the
$10
trust
million.
fund $10 million every year for the past 4 years.
Well, not
Just had to
not
put
the-
in
not the most
extra.
recent year.
Yeah.
Yeah, last year was the first year in 4 years that we have not had to put additional money in. So
But it's
that's what
budgeted
we're
for,
working
right?
toward.
Like, we're forecasting that amount, that expenditure, budget, right? Like, if we're saying that we've been putting in $10 million, then you're setting aside that $10 million.
No.
No,
No.
that was something the board had to come back
They
at the end of
overspent.
the year and do because we overspent.
Yeah, but where'd the money come from though? Like what pot of money
The
did that
general
$10 million
budget.
come from?
We were actually, you remember we're talking about capital transfers? We were actually trying to reduce our capital transfers, but we had to pull money out of capital, which we're legally allowed to do, to put it into the health insurance trust fund.
Okay.
That's
So it's
why.
kinda like using I don't wanna say that's a bad analogy, but kinda like using a credit card versus using cash, but that's a bad example. 'Cause
Well, it's money that you wanna use for its intended purpose. Not-
From Peter to pay.
But that's why our path forward is so critical and important. And rising tide lifts all boats. And we hope to give you the opportunity to have a broader conversation about some of these things.
So I see what you're saying then. So if we're subsidizing it from another categorical, when we save money, then we need to stop using that
Right,
categorical
correct.
dollars, which is the capital.
And last year we did not.
And that is not our intention, so we're not budgeting to plan to do that anymore. We're just trying to get the cost down so that we don't need to put additional funding
Correct.
in.
And then what is
And
the
over time, as all these initiatives continue to get our health costs further and further down, then we can talk about needing less of the funding that we do have to go towards healthcare.
Because we have a normal budget to subsidize something to the trust fund. Like I'm saying, under like ideal conditions, it's not like it, we're
Our
only
budget this
taking
year,
members'
we're
money.
not planning on putting any additional dollars into the trust fund, aside from the board contribution, the $68.26 per employee.
And the 6826 is still funded through part capital, part general revenue.
It's all operational dollars.
So all operation, we are getting better then.
Any other questions? Thank you all very, very much. This was very, very important and very helpful, so I appreciate all you're doing.
Thank you.
With that, we will stand adjourned until our regularly scheduled.